Happy Mars Day, Collective. Today is Tuesday, and that is ruled by the planet Mars, planet associated with action, vitality, also conflict, aggression. But we're going to focus on the more positive um, characteristics of Mars because I think collectively the energy is very much, well, conflict laden, but you might feel that sort of little bit of aggressive streak in yourself this week. That's normal. I do too. And part of that is the transits that we're under. We've got an upcoming lunar eclipse, and I was going to actually thinking about making a video about that. Maybe do a little fireside reflection video where I just discuss like the energies that are kind of working in tandem that affect all of us for the upcoming lunar eclipse in Taurus Saturday, I believe, on the 28th. But right now, it's Tuesday the 24th, so we're going to talk about Mars, planet that rules Tuesdays, and we're going to talk about the number six. Now, this right here, I don't know how well you can see it, but you can always look it up online if you want a sort of zoomed in view. I've got the Six of Wands card in tarot. Now, why do I have that? Well, wands in tarot, as I've covered in the I Can Buy Myself Flowers video, wands are the energy of fire. They're associated with action, initiation. If you want to bring in the astrology of it, wands are associated with the sign of Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Those are the fire signs. And once again, in tarot, we've got four energies, just like in the astrology wheel. We've got fire, earth, air, and water. And so in the I Can Buy Myself Flowers video, we talked about pentacles. And, as I reviewed in that video, pentacles being resources, not just money, but energetic resources, the things in the 3D world that you need, sort of like your energetic commodities, like the value that you need and use in exchange. So wands are that fire within us, the thing that we need to take action, the thing that we need to initiate. So because today's the 24th, I thought let's throw in the Six of Wands, and that is going to tie very neatly into this tree. And just listen up, I'll tell you how. So the number six, we get that by adding two and four in numerology. That gives us six. So today is a sixth day. Sixes are about balance and stability, nurturing. It is a very a positive number, just like you picture the number six, it's balance, it's even. So the Six of Wands in tarot, um, it represents victory, recognition, and the image on the card kind of suggests that it occurs in front of others. So it's sort of like recognition from others. Now, a Six of Wands energy is going to be different for everybody. Everybody's victories are different. It depends what stage you're at. It depends what battles you're fighting. So I really want to talk about this tree today, and this is where I'm really going to kind of get into the subject matter of therapeutic horticulture and how the metaphors of the plant world all around us and the life cycles of plants and seeds um, very much mirror those of the human experience. And this tree is definitely no exception. Now, why is this tree my Six of Wands? Why is this tree an embodiment of the Six of Wands? Well, I'm going to tell you. This tree, as you can see, I'm going to try to make it to where you can see the sort of curiosity of this tree, because as you can see, we've got these guys over here, these leaves. They're kind of curled at the end. They've got some brown edges here. Maybe you can hear it crinkle. But then you've got these like bright red things that are coming out, and they look like they are totally unaware of the struggle on the other parts of the tree. Now, how did this tree get like this? Well, I've alluded to in my other videos that this has basically been one of the worst years of my adult life. And a lot of people find that horticulture and taking care of plants and um, especially things like, potted trees, some people are apprehensive. They kind of worry, like, well, what happens if if I can't keep it alive? What happens if I get depressed? I think this is a very realistic thing that people are uncomfortable talking about sometimes. And I really want this channel to sort of change that. Taking care of plants is 100% for depressed people because you might think, oh, I'm too depressed to keep that alive. Well, let me tell you what happened with this tree. So I've had this for, I'm going to say 3 years at this point. It's very low maintenance. It generally handles itself. But this year, not only was it extremely hot for like a big block of time without any rain, so I wasn't able to rely on like the natural elements to sort of fill in the gaps for me, but I was sort of in a fight that I hadn't been in at a different point in my life and trying to persevere and sort of juggle these external and internal battles with myself. And I'm a big fan. A lot of people that know me, I'm a big fan of Japanese maple trees. So I want to say one in the ground. I have one in the ground, but most of them are in pots. So I usually have plenty of luck with the natural elements and letting the rain handle them because they're very popular in landscaping and as potted specimens because they have pretty shallow root systems and you can kind of manage the size of them based on the size pot that you keep them in. So probably down the line, I'll do like a more extended video on why I love Japanese maples so much and maybe covering the different ones that I have for anyone interested. If you're interested, leave me a comment. I'd be glad to do that sooner rather than later. But kind of trying to start small here for people that maybe are just kind of delving into the subject matter. So when I talk about therapeutic horticulture and I talk about how it kind of gives us this window into why, when we are going through periods of struggle, how looking to the natural world, looking to the plant world, and the pace of it, and the natural cycles of um, life springing back up, and then flourishing, and then sort of uh, metamorphosizing. The leaves changing colors, and then falling off, and then showing the beautiful structure, like I would say Saturn would be a planet that would represent when all the leaves fall off and all you see is the bare bones of it. Saturn rules bones structure within our bodies. So if I had to liken it to what this tree would be, it would be when all the leaves fall and all you see is the structure, and that has its own beauty. Just the I don't know, it's almost sculptural. You see all the leaves gone and you see just the shapes of the branches in the winter. And sometimes I like it so much to where I'll want to shine like a little solar spotlight up on it because it's just beautiful in its own right. Um, so this tree endured some neglect this year. And once I finally started to get back around to some of these things that really needed attention outside, this tree made me sad. I was putting it off because pretty much all the leaves, there were leaves all over on the branches, and they were all, about this shade. They were beautiful green, but they were all pretty much um, struggling. They were all curled up at the edges. Some of them were just completely brown and like shriveled up to where it was like a ball. And so I went through one day and I just, sucked it up and I pulled off pretty much all of those. Like most of them were just gone, the leaves. And then the ones that just didn't tug off readily, that just had curled up edges, I just left them. And so I always suggest to my friends that think, oh, I already killed this plant. I'm so sad. Spent 30, 40 bucks at the garden center for it, and now I'm gonna have to toss it. Well, I always say, don't give up on your perennial. Don't give up on it yet. Um, just go ahead and create a little area like a rehab center in your yard to where it's not just direct overbearing sunlight, but to where it gets enough sunlight, maybe just some morning light, maybe some dappled afternoon light, um, to where you can just let it rest. Keep it, put it in a black nursery pot if you want to, use a nicer, say it's taking up a nice container and you want to try again with something else. Yank it up, put it in a black plastic nursery pot, take off all the things that are clearly dead, and maybe clip down some of the branches to where it doesn't have to expend so much energy to recoup itself. Um, and then just put it off in the corner and just let it be. Try to see what happens, see what it wants to do. And sometimes, you realize it's a loss, but you haven't lost anything by putting it in that little rehab corner. Just give it a chance. So, not to break my own rule, I did that with this tree. I kind of got over myself, and even though it kind of made me sad to pass by it all the time because it's one of my favorite potted Japanese maples, I was like, it's fine. Just have a little faith in it. Give it a chance to recoup itself. Um, so I gotta say, for most of I want to say this was back in maybe August. I just sort of sucked it up and did the trimming, left these few leaves, put it in the rehab corner. So I guess I want to say in the last 3 weeks, I really took a look at it and I was like, oh my goodness, look at this. And so you've got all this like emergent growth, this new growth. But what's really nice is it's growing in the color that the leaves, had they all stayed on, would have turned. So that was also kind of what made me sad, is that even if the tree wasn't done for, I knew in my mind that I had already missed out on one of my favorite parts of keeping Japanese maples, which was watching all the leaves turn colors. That's of course one of the um, well-known rewards for anyone that keeps these plants, is watching that cycle of leaf change. So I just kind of said, well, that's fine. That's just part of it. Next year, hopefully it'll survive, and we'll see it next year. So as it turns out, the leaves that did remain are still here, sort of reminders of what it has been through. Um, but then they exist right alongside these beautiful new leaves, like this growth that, despite the battles that this tree has endured, um, you look at it and it's like its own self-authenticating story of triumph, of of vitality that couldn't uh that never went away despite outward signs of struggle. And I love it because, a part of me that's I don't really know how I'd classify it, but has the temptation to go and cut off all these older leaves, and go, let's just let the pretty red leaves be the only leaves on the tree. But then I'm going to go back to that video I did on thoughts on mourning and grief. It was a prep talk, and I talked about, I made the analogy of your tapestry, your beautiful tapestry, where you don't ever want to go in and rip out the threads of the emotional turmoil, or the event, the tower event, the thing that really uh, shows the struggle and the endurance of your life. You don't want to rip those threads out. You want to leave those, because as you grow and as you heal, um, as your body replenishes itself, as you kind of revisit these things, instead of trying to bury them, cover them up, rip out the threads, the unique beauty that will emerge over time with that consistent self care towards yourself, that consistent effort, that consistent um, time you set aside to go in your little rehab corner, so to speak, and just give yourself a chance to regenerate. You might be surprised. You might be surprised at what you find. You might be surprised at how much you like what almost seems like an anomaly. It's like, how can some of these parts look so worse for wear? How can part of this tree look dead while the other part looks like it's emerging, like fresh and new in the world? And so I decided I would just make a little video of this, and trim off some of the little dried up parts that clearly aren't going to generate anything. And you can usually tell what those are by just gently pulling. The stuff will come off on its own. So it's like sort of the little I guess, what used to be connected to the leaves that have since gone, almost like the veiny center of the leaves. Some of those are just hanging on. So I'm just kind of casually removing those while still leaving our struggle bus leaves, evidence of the battle that occurred earlier this year. Because now I pass by it, and instead of it making me sad and making me feel like this tree has been a casualty to my own life struggle this year, now I look at this tree and I see myself. I see the battle scars. I see, those the remnants of me that remained, because we don't want to toss the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Like, I mean, I don't believe that any period of growth in your life, even significant transformation, I don't know, this might not apply to everyone, but rarely do we need to discard all parts of ourselves, right? I mean, you need a sense of continuity, at least I do personally, because not everything about you was bad. Not everything about you was ill equipped. Not everything about you needed a complete overhaul. Um, and I think that that's where the modest approach of horticulture and gardening also comes in. They say, my favorite quotes, I don't really know who to attribute this quote to. One of my favorite quotes about gardening is that gardening is the slowest of the performing arts. Now, here I am on Mars Day talking about the light hand, operating with a light hand, and patience, moderation. And those kind of seem like an enigma to the planet of Mars. Like, these are more Saturnian themes, you know? Delayed gratification. I've talked about Saturn in a prep talk video. I would visit that if you kind of want to hear a little bit about the archetypal energy of Saturn. But I don't know. I kind of think the best Mars is a Mars tempered by a more long term view, a Mars tempered with a light touch. Because while we all need that fighting spirit, gotta say it was Martian energy that probably got this tree through. This tree had this determination to endure, and so it did. But uh, the Saturn had to come in terms of understanding the nature of gardening and horticulture itself, which is um, patience. Everything worth having um, is also worth waiting for. And that doesn't mean it's not a reason to sit back and put your heels up and not take action. No, you just have to really sit there and think. Maybe on your Mercury day on Wednesday, strategize. Think about what action needs to be taken in order to set the right things in motion so I can step back and let nature take its course. So my my general approach to life anyways with a lot of things is no more than necessary to achieve the thing. Now, this is how I approach cooking. This is how I approach lots of things actually, and that's just um, kind of just my nature. I'm not saying that that's the best way to be. For some people, that's not their personality type. That's not how they express themselves. Um, and so that's not a good fit for everybody. For me, that's just how I approach things. So for me, having a light touch and just getting in there, cutting what no longer serves me on this tree, cutting what's no longer serving the whole on this tree. So let's see, what's a good example of that? Like, you might not be able to see, but anything where the branches are crisscross, where something is wanting to emerge on one branch that's already growing kind of parallel to another, and then it's creating like this kind of offshoot that runs perpendicular. Well, if this offshoot is successful, we're going to have sort of a crisscross situation. So let's just go ahead and prevent that from happening. Why? Because you always want to maintain airflow, the conditions for good airflow among the leaves when everything is filled out and doing its best. You don't want to create these crisscrossing branches everywhere because that will disrupt the airflow and therefore the overall health of the tree over time. So even sometimes it's quite painful because you're like, oh, this one branch is doing quite well, but again, it's about the whole. So sometimes you just got to kind of have some of the branches take one for the team, I guess you might say, and just be deliberate about it. Don't rush it. Sometimes you need to just step back, take your time, and just look at it from multiple angles. But, just remember that a little clip here, a little clip there, is going to serve the whole in the long run. And so, in the spirit of cutting what no longer serves us, that is the principle we keep in mind in our own lives, but in horticulture. And there's something quite therapeutic to see these lessons play out in something as simple as a potted tree. So, I talk about the Six of Wands and the victory and the recognition. Someone might look at this tree and go, how is this a Six of Wands? I mean, look at it. Well, that's fine. But for me and the year that I've had, the struggle and the sort of not being able to see at the beginning of this year how anything would look like a victory, how anything would feel triumphant, um, let alone something I'd be willing to put out there into the world for anyone to see on the internet. I mean, that was just unfathomable to me at the beginning of this year. And so you might say that the act of me sharing these things with you, the act of me showing this tree to you, to the world, is what gives us our Six of Wands. Because had I not shared the story of this tree, had I not put it out there for everyone to observe, um, it is its own little victory and it's its own point of pride, but it's not observable to others. And if you look up the card, you will see that he's riding around on his horse and there's people in the background. And he's holding like a little wreath on one of his wands. And it's clearly a card of triumph and of celebration. And it's wand energy. So it's like celebration of one's efforts, one's initiative, one's action. So in sharing this tree, aside from it being a great introduction to the whole nature of therapeutic horticulture and seeing how the metaphors just write themselves so readily in the subject of gardening and plant keeping, just working with the natural world. Like there are these sort of embedded archetypes in all of us. And, if you know anything about Carl Jung and depth psychology, it would be argued that they're all sort of like downloaded within us into the in our very DNA, into the DNA of the plant world, into all the living world, these sort of archetypal experiences that uh, exist across species, across living things. And so I hope over time to really weave in those metaphors and examples of how they've really played out in my life this year, but in the lives of my plants, honestly, that exist alongside me and tend to mirror the conditions of the external. I essentially am the caretaker of these plants, so your plants are generally going to mimic the state of affairs of the caretaker, just like within our bodies. what's going on inside is going to be reflected on the outside, and what's going on with the caretaker of the plants is going to be reflected in the state of the plants, for better or worse. But I just invite a lot of you to use that as an invitation instead of a point of apprehension, and start small. I wouldn't recommend going right into a tree if you've never had a plant, at least a potted tree, because you control the conditions in the pot. So you can't stick it in the ground and just sort of let nature figure it out, which it often does. Um, but by all means, if you are used to keeping plants, gardening, and you've been thinking about getting into the area of Japanese maples or any sort of small trees in pots and containers, I say go for it. Start small, start where you are, and then just tend to it. Observe, observe and respond. The light hand. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And I hope that this channel provides you a forum to ask any question. If something in this video sparked your curiosity about tarot, about plants, about the subject of therapeutic horticulture, which I hope to delve in more and more as I sort of lace in these examples, both more direct but also more remote examples, then please don't hesitate. Leave a comment, ask a question. If there's like a video that you want to see, where I go more in depth about certain things, then I will be glad to oblige. And so, in the meantime, I hope that all of you have done something today, taken some little active initiation of some sort of small act, even if unseen, to set yourself up for some sort of victory in the future, no matter if it's next week or next year. In the meantime, I hope you take care of yourselves. Just remember, you know, the beauty can be seen where the scars and the battle wounds exist alongside the evidence of growth. One goes hand in hand with the other. Until next time.